Heather?
Thank you, Congresswoman DeLauro and Congressman Miller for convening this today. It's really just an honor to be here. My name is Heather Boushey. I'm senior economist at the Center for American Progress. No less than the role of the public sector and the end game of who benefits from our nation's economic growth is what is at stake in the battle today over collective bargaining. America's middle class has seen decades of hollowing out, but the attack on collective bargaining could be that proverbial last straw for the viability of our middle class and for the prosperity that it has brought our nation. As Tom said, and I'd like to echo this, unions are not the problem with our economy. We continue to live in one of the richest nations on the planet, the third among the developed nations that belong to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Even so, in recent decades, the gains of our productivity have accrued primarily to those at the very top, and we've seen decades of hollowing out of our middle class. Now, just a few years after a massive financial crisis, profits are rising rapidly, but companies are not investing. The non-farm, non-financial business sector was holding more than $1.9 trillion in cash in the third quarter of 2010, the highest level since the fourth quarter of 1959. While investment is at its lowest level in more than 4 decades. Yet, here we are today having a conversation about whether or not we can afford to allow school teachers and police officers to have basic labor rights. In reality, our economy's future depends on laying the foundations for long-term economic growth by making sound investments in our human capital, our infrastructure, and the next generation of scientific and technological advances. We need these investments for our economy to grow, and we need a highly skilled public sector workforce to put these policies into effect. The right to collectively bargain gives workers the right to engage in a meaningful conversation with employers about the things that matter to them. Bargaining over wages is important, but bargaining over everything else is critical. As the witnesses have already told you here today, unions bargain over issues like class size and adequate safety measures that improve productivity, as well as issues around workplace flexibility like hours, paid sick days, vacation, and the rest. What has been striking about the debate is that in many cases, this is not just about pay, but it's about having a voice at work. These kinds of non-wage issues are, of course, especially important to workers who are caregivers and to women workers. Women make up over 60% of local government workers and just over half of state government workers. And employment contracts help workers address their specific job issues, such as navigating between care responsibilities and work responsibilities. And of course, many of the services that we've heard about here today that these fantastic workers do actually disproportionately benefit women and their families. Let's take teaching for just one example. We know from decades of research that teachers' skills are critical for children's educational outcomes. Yet today, many of the best and the brightest young women eschew teaching. They choose other careers. Much of this is because as women's career opportunities have flourished in recent decades, they have the choice of whether or not to devote themselves to teaching. And if the job just doesn't measure up, then the best minds will find opportunities elsewhere. We need teaching to be a good job. We need it to be something that attracts the best and the brightest. But I can't help but wonder, echoing, I think, something that Courtney said, after watching this vitriol going on in Wisconsin day after day, will a smart, capable young person choose teaching over other opportunities? Will stripping teachers of their benefits and rights improve the quality of our schools? Okay, public sector workers are not overpaid. Let's just be clear. One of my former colleagues, John Schmidt, has done some of the work on this, has had folks at the Economic Policy Institute and other organizations around the country. Dr. Schmidt has shown that when state and local government employees are compared to private sector workers with similar characteristics, state and local workers actually earn 4% less on average than their private sector counterparts. Yes, public sector workers tend to get more benefits. And sometimes it's because they're firefighters and police officers and they need to retire a little bit earlier than the rest of us, because I'm certain sure that nobody wants a 65-year-old trying to carry people out of a burning building. It's some, of course, but that's, an aside.
Hold that remark.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I realized that I was going off script here. I should never do that. However, let's remember, Public sector workers tend to be older, better educated than the workforce overall, and many of them need these benefits, and they make up for their lower wages. The jobs that our public sector workers do are important, and we've heard a great deal about this today. What I'd like to add is, as an economist, I can tell you that they are critical to our economic growth and to rebuilding our nation's middle class. Unfortunately, H.R. 1, which passed the House on partisan lines in February, targeted protections for workers with dramatic cuts aimed at workforce investment programs, occupational safety and health, and the right to organize. For example, the bill will lead to the shutdown of 3,000 local career one-stop centers, 8,000 fewer workplace health and safety inspections, and the furlough of all NLRB employees for half of the rest of the fiscal year. A strong middle class is key to our nation's future, but we can't build a strong middle class if we don't have safe streets, enriching classrooms, and all the other things that public sector workers do. They are the foundation for a strong economy, not the enemy. And I want to end by echoing Janice's closing line and thanking you all for taking the time to convene this panel of workers today. I know that you understand the urgency, and I hope that you can help push this Congress to keep the focus on good jobs for all.